The first idea in this race is a real simple one. Troy King is a disaster, and it is our duty to remove him from public life. He does not want the Alabama we want. He doesn't share our values. He and Luther Strange will use the office to protect their powerful friends and not the people who really need help. I know many of you, I live here in Birmingham with my wife Hillary and our 3 kids. I've been active in the community, working with some of you on taking the zoo private, and also most proudly the building of the railroad park that's going to open in a couple of months. I've practiced law in Birmingham since 1992. So I look around the room, I think maybe no one's practicing law in the courthouse right now because all the judges are here. I've also been active in our party's politics. Now I've done this because my mother taught me that public life and politics were a way to build communities and help people. And if that's somehow a liability, this involvement, if it's a liability to have been in a foxhole with all of y'all, then that's something I would gladly bear, because the only way you bring about change is to be in the game. I ran the Alabama Democratic Party in 1998, and we had the most successful year we've had since the state's been a 2-party state. We won 8 of 16 statewide elections. We picked up 2 seats in the Alabama State Senate, and we held our big majority in the House. I know how to win elections. I know how to put the resources together. I know what the messaging needs to be. I also know what I'm going to do when I become Attorney General. It's a big job. The first duty of Attorney General is to prosecute crime to protect the citizens of Alabama. And to do that, I'm going to have something our friend Troy doesn't have, and that is a good working relationship with all of law enforcement, Democrat or Republican, across the state. It is also the job of Alabama's Attorney General to protect the people when the powerful break our laws or abuse our trust. If we don't stop public corruption, we will never realize our full potential or address our other concerns. I was taught that you don't lie, you don't cheat, you don't steal, and you don't tolerate those that do. It's time that we brought a standard like this to Alabama public life. This isn't new stuff. Our parents taught us how to behave. In Genesis, God gives us dominion over all things, and with dominion comes responsibility. We will be judged by how we treat this earth and the things that live on it. You make me Attorney General of Alabama, and I will fight to protect all that's good in our state. The lesson really that I bring to this comes from my grandfather. He gave real simple advice. He said, if you're having a real tough decision, you got a fundamental thing you've got to decide, go back to your basic core values, and you'll probably do the right thing. He also said that if you're in a fight, sometimes it helps to pick up a big stick. Now, the fundamental decision we have to make is what kind of Alabama we want to be. We can live in this beautiful place and ignore its problems, or we can fight for something better. I see an Alabama with safe streets, honest government, and opportunity for all. I see an Alabama where my kids and your grandchildren raise their families and thrive and prosper right here in Alabama. If you see this too, then help me win. This is my first run for public office, and I'm doing it to bring about radical, aggressive change in how we do business in Montgomery. My dad was a lawyer, and actually I'm a 4th-generation lawyer, but Dad had a habit of taking me and my siblings around to courtrooms all over the place. And when we're driving in the car or we're in the courtroom, he taught me that the law is a very powerful tool, perhaps the big stick of the civilized world. It's a tool that can help people and bring about justice. The people who need help are not the ones who can hire fancy, expensive lawyers. The people who need help are being taken advantage of every day. Those are the people I'm running for. Those are the people I want to protect. As Attorney General, I will be proactive and tough and will get more out of the office than ever been gotten before. There is no other office I want to seek. I want to go down there and do that job. I honor the trust and the faith that many of you and others across the state have put in this campaign. I understand the burden of the job, and I vow to you that I will not let you down. Now that's 4 minutes, a little bit less than 4 minutes. And I left the other 8, which I thought was going to be 6, because I know this is not a bashful crowd. And I want to take questions, and I will answer anything you put forward to the best of my ability. So with that, let's spend the remaining allocation of my time having a conversation. please just raise your hand and I'll call on you. And if you don't, I'll call on someone that didn't raise their hand. Yes, ma'am.
Bingo. Talk about bingo.
Okay. They say the governor's upstairs, which means he's not out raiding with 150 troops. I think the reality of bingo is that the law has not caught up with what's going on the ground. And it is a very confusing, I know Judge Vance is here, and some places it's not confusing, but a lot of places it is. And I think this escalation is actually quite dangerous, and that we are looking at an incident when you bring those kind of people in. You know, what I really would say, though, is there's a call for leadership. The Attorney General is clearly not doing anything proactive on this issue. I'm confused as to the governor's motivation and actions, and the legislature needs to go and take it up in this session and let the people vote on it, decide if they want it in their communities, and if it comes to their communities, we need to tax it and regulate it at extreme levels. And that's my view on gaming. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Would you consider a moratorium on the death penalty?
Well, I think we ought to consider anything. I mean, I'm for the death penalty fairly applied, and I think there are some real questions about how we're doing that in terms of access to counsel, use of DNA evidence that the legislature needs to take a hard look at. Okay, you know, it's a fundamental part of why I'm doing this, that I think public corruption is holding us back, and we need meaningful ethics reform, and I think it's ridiculous that in this world of technology, that the first thing we should have is transparency. You know, there is no filing requirement on an elected official if they get a gift. If, hypothetically, someone hands you a Rolex, they might have an obligation to go report that, but you don't. I think that's ridiculous. I think that we ought to have a change on the pack-to-pack transfer, and I think there are other measures should be taken, but I also think that the Attorney General can fairly enforce the laws that exist and bring about some ethics reform. And also, in fairness to the Attorney General, he does have support among certain areas of the police, but if you go talk to the district attorneys, pretty much to a person, they don't have a lot of interaction and respect for him. And the real truth is, it's communication. They tell me he comes into their town, so that Tommy Smith, DA of Tuscaloosa, will tell you that he learns that the AG's in town when he's having a press conference on the steps of the courthouse. And that seems not the way to go about business. He takes cases away from them, which the Attorney General has the authority to do in certain circumstances for political reasons. And you know, it ought to be that you're talking to them all the time. They're the folks on the ground. They know the real problems in their community. They know what's working and what's not. And the AG ought to be there really more than anything else to empower their efforts. The broader question, Redding, is we should be prosecuting crimes, not people. You know, if you know the old theory, it is a crime happens, then you figure out who did it and you prosecute them instead of looking at somebody and saying, you know what, we don't like Jim North so much, so we're going to figure out how to put him in jail. And so I think that all plays into that, and that there needs to be clarity in how investigators are reined in and who they work for. And the good news is we've got a good group of U.S. attorneys coming in. I believe whoever's the Attorney General has got the opportunity to sit down and sort that out in a meaningful way for the first time in a long time. Yeah, I think we've got a real weak consumer protection statute, and that's one of the reasons that our state and our citizens get taken advantage of. I think what we have there is not being used enough, but we really need to, and I would as Attorney General, go to the legislature, go to some other states and see what's working there, figure out what needs to be in our code to really empower the Attorney General to protect the citizens. That, you know, I mentioned the passage of Genesis, and I mean that. I think we've got a responsibility to protect this earth and turn it over to our children in a way that's useful and that doesn't kill them. And that the AG ought to be focused on how do we utilize the laws to at least call the questions, prosecute the bad polluters, and turn this place over better to the next generation than it was given to us.